Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Starved Rock Murders with Andy Hale. I'm flying solo today as Whitney is unable to join us today, but I feel as though she's here in spirit. Whitney, we miss you. We took a little break as we wait for the DNA results to come back, which should be soon, by the way, hopefully just a few more weeks. But we're dropping this bonus episode because we had another big development in the case, the biggest so far, and I don't say that lightly. The first major break was the man from Hennepin, Illinois, who told us the story about Smokey Rona and a premeditated plan to murder the three women. The second major break was the 2-page police report detailing an interview with a telephone operator named Lois Zelensek, who overheard two men talking about a kid who had bloody overalls in the trunk of a car and instructions to get rid of them, burn them. This third and new major development involves a woman reaching out to me and recounting a story she had been told by a family member about the Starved Rock murders. A credible story that right now is giving me goosebumps as I say these words, that combined with everything else we know, proves conclusively in my mind that Chester Weger had absolutely nothing to do with the Starved Rock murders. Within days of speaking to this woman on the telephone, I jumped on an airplane, flew to the state where she resides, and took a court-reported statement from her under oath. She repeated the story for me again in detail. Tears were shed. It was emotional. It was powerful. What I'd like to do for this episode is to simply play a large portion of the phone conversation I recently had with this woman. I want you to hear for yourself the authenticity in this woman's voice and the details of what she told me. Now, we'll be blocking out some of her personal information because she is concerned for her safety and we want to protect her confidentiality until we can share her information with the state's attorney's office. We're going to play a substantial portion of that phone conversation now, and then I'll come back and share some of my thoughts. Please get comfortable. Let's take a listen.
Okay, are you there?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so I think this is working. I hope so. Let's just start at the beginning since this is the first time we talked. And just so when I go back and listen to this, today is June 22nd, 2022. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I received a Facebook message last night from, which is you, correct?
Yes.
And I reached out now because you had said in your Facebook message that you had information on Chester Weger and the Starved Rock murders. So as I told you a minute ago, I will talk to anybody that knows anything. And I want to just say, before I even know what you have to tell me, I really appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling me back. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out. I reached out to a female attorney years ago, and after that, I gave up. Before that, I talked to the LaSalle police. I talked to the Ottawa. I went to everybody I could think of.
Wow.
No one would listen. Yeah, one would listen.
Tell me, just state your name, your age, and where you the town you currently live in.
Okay, my name is originally was from my father's side in the Peru area. I live in. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in September, but I live in for about 15 years now, almost. My husband and I got married, and we came here because this is where he's from.
Okay, so I'll just let you kind of start. Where do you want to start? Just kind of telling me this story.
Yeah, I guess the easiest place is to start when my grandpa told it to me. He was really sick with cancer. Back when I was 15, he found out he had lung cancer, smoker his whole life. And he decided, he was laying on it. He was really sick, and he was nearing death. Probably about a month later is when he passed. And he told me he had something he had to tell me. And I asked him what, because he knew I was, looking to go into college and be the first person in our family to graduate. And he said that he knew about my history. Now, mind you, growing up, I heard the story about John Wayne Gacy because he lived a couple blocks from my family, from my grandfather's house. And I heard about, the Starved Rock murders because they were in my parents' or my father's town. So it, wasn't something I wasn't unfamiliar with. But he told me that he had to tell me something, and he wanted me to follow through with it. I told him I would because he and I were very close. I sat down with him, and he told me that he knew who killed the women in the Starved Rock murders. I said, well, I know, Grandpa, someone was arrested for it and is in prison. He said that man is a fall guy. He did not commit the murders. He was just convenient. And I kind of was a little shocked at first, and I honestly, I thought it was because he was sick, but he was not on morphine. He was not on anything for the cancer because he wanted to be lucid for my grandmother until he died. Mm-hmm. And I asked him what he knew and how he knew. And he said, about my past and who I've worked for my whole life. And even though he was in construction, I knew he was in the mafia. It wasn't something you'd walk around telling people. And nowadays, it's, I hope, safe to say. But it wasn't something you walked around and told people. My entire town, if you look up the history of Illinois, you'll find that half of them were Italian and most of them were in the mob. But, I knew what he did, and I knew that he was in charge of lending out people to be taken care of with how he talked about it when I was young and joked about it, and when his brother would come over. His brother lived in St. Louis. And so I said, I know your past. And he said, well, I know for a fact that the man that's in prison didn't do it. The fact is that, and he gave me the one lady's name, and I don't remember their names. And the only reason I reached out to you is because I saw something on HBO saying the Starved Rock murders, and I went into it to tell my kid because I've been telling him for years that I know this guy was innocent. I said, oh my gosh, they finally did something on this. And long story short, I haven't watched it. I don't know if I'm going to. I want to know that they find him innocent before I watch something. One of the ladies, I know there were three, and I know they were older. Right. One of the ladies' husbands I worked for, it was some kind of communications. I don't remember what it was, but he said that the husband knew he was really close to someone that my grandfather knew. He hired them to kill his wife.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And because of this, it wasn't one man that took on three women who, look at the circumstances. Tiny, scrawny little guy attacks, three women that are my age, older, something like that. They weren't young women. Were they really going to stand back and take it?
Uh-huh.
My grandfather told me that it was meant to appear, he wanted revenge. He wanted them to know he was angry, and there was supposed to be revenge. I looked at the photos. Who wanted
who to know who was angry?
The father, the husband wanted revenge on the wife. I don't know what she did. I have no idea. I don't know his exact connection with the man that my grandfather knew. He didn't go into details with that. He just told me this man hired one of his guys to get a group and kill these women. He knew the details. He sent them down there knowing three of them would be there. The women were surprised, but the guys that were sent down weren't surprised. Grandpa said he knew there were 6 guys that went on the trail. He doesn't know how many of them were there. He said a lot of them stood as lookouts. Whoever wasn't a lookout attacked these women.
Oh my gosh.
He said they were not killed in the cave, which makes sense to me. Now that I'm older, when I was younger, I really thought that they were really bludgeoned in a cave. Since being there, I know that those caves aren't big. But he said they weren't bludgeoned they weren't beaten in a cave. They were beaten and they were posed so that so the husband would know that the job was done properly.
Wow.
And I know, I'm hoping you're at least my age, if not older.
I'm unfortunately older than you.
Well, that's good, because then you understand that the mafia was a big thing in Chicago for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had their fingers in everything. You couldn't turn around and cough without knowing someone or seeing someone that was in the mob. And, my grandfather's last name was not far-fetched to
Your
believe
grandfather's last name was what? How do you spell it?
He wasn't part of it, but he knew the men that were. And he spent his deathbed, I guess, the last month of his life. We spent a lot of time talking. And I loved him like my own father. I loved him. He helped raise me, and I don't doubt what he said is true. Not for anything.
How do you spell your
it.
grandfather's last name? And what was his first name? How old was he when he passed?
Oh, good Lord. He was 70, I think. I think he hit his 70th birthday.
So your grandfather was in the mafia?
Yes.
So before I don't want to interject and start asking you questions and things. I'd rather just let you talk and tell me anything else you remember your grandfather telling you, if there's anything else you remember.
What else? The only other thing I remember is he said that they brought everything they needed with them. They found, they went up to the lodge. The guy spent the night watching the women. They wanted, I guess, making sure that they didn't have witnesses, because that's one thing that the mafia is good at, not leaving witnesses, which is why sadly all three of them died, not just one. But everything that they had, they brought with them. I think he said I don't remember what they grabbed, but they grabbed one or two things from the lodge in case, and I don't know if it was in case they needed it. God, it's been so many years since I've had this conversation with him, but I do know that they did grab something from the lodge, or two things from the lodge, to make sure that if there wasn't some kind of necessary, they had it. Regardless, that's really pretty much it.
Did he say?
Sadly, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, did he say what? I don't have specifics. I just know they grabbed something. They took a few things from the lodge that they needed to help in case there was some need for it.
Did he give you a name of anybody that was there?
Of the guys? Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
No, that's not something. Even if I wanted them, he wouldn't have given them to me, because that puts me at risk. That puts my life at risk.
Why do you think? And I believe everything you're telling me. Just let me say that, okay? Why do you think he told you all this?
When I was 15 when my grandfather passed. He died in 96.
96?
In our town, 96, yeah. In our town, the mafia was still a big thing. And because I was his granddaughter, I would run packages. I would, drop envelopes off. If someone needed me for something, I would do it. He didn't want me in that life. He didn't want me. I mean, granted, good money, really good money at 15 years old. But he didn't want me in that life. So he told me to stick with the job that he got me with a friend of his in town. I did. And he wanted me out of it. And I told him I didn't understand. And a lot of it, he told me a lot of stories. This is not the first one. I know about a lot of people who were offed, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were a lot of stories. And he said that it weighs on your conscience, that you have to die with that knowledge. I definitely didn't want that knowledge. And I'm glad I didn't stick with what he had me doing, or he's the one who got me originally into it because he needed help.
Let me just tell you, have you heard any of my podcasts at all?
I've not.
Okay, so I want to tell you something. What you just told me, I've got goosebumps on my arms. I wish you could see my arms. I've got incredible goosebumps. What you just told me, the hair on my arms is sticking straight out. What you just told me is absolutely 100% consistent with things I've been saying on this podcast. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You are telling me you're corroborating very powerfully what I've been saying, on the podcast.
When I went
a breakthrough.
online,
this is a real breakthrough for me. Oh my gosh, I'm almost in tears. I'm almost in tears right now.
I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad you actually called to listen, because I can't tell you how many people. When I was 18, I left my grandmother and I told her I had to do something. My grandma has no idea. Well, she's passed now, but she had no idea what I had to do. I told her it's something I had to do that Grandpa made me promise. And she said, well, if he made you promise, you better do it. And I said, yes, ma'am, and I did it. I mean, I grew up in a Catholic family. We went to church down the road in the Catholic church. There was no, you make a promise and cheat it out. But I told her I had to do it.
What did your grandpa want you to do?
He wanted me to get someone to listen so that Chester would get set free.
Oh my
He
gosh.
wanted him set free because he felt guilty that man was in prison when he knew who murdered those women.
Wow.
And I went into forensics. My first year in college, I went into forensic science. My goal, my major declaration was forensic science. I mean, I wanted to help prove this man innocent because my grandfather swore it was true. And that man didn't tell lies. I mean, he did not look at people and say, oh, well, I might have heard. He didn't say something unless he knew for sure.
Can you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I wanted to, instead of me like recapping what you just said, I didn't want to do that because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I want to hear it again and let it sink in. Can you just tell me one more time what he told you actually happened?
Okay. So one of the wife's husbands was in some sort of communication. I don't know what that meant. I still don't know what that meant. I've never done the research on these people because if I did finally get to look at the evidence from a scientific perspective, I didn't want it to change what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never researched this case. I can't. I still to this day know he's innocent. But I don't know enough about it to say, oh, well, it had to be so-and-so. I just know that one of the women's husbands was in communications. He knew one of the men from the mob that my grandfather was very tight with. That being said, I don't know who it was. We had a lot of people come to our house, so I don't know who it was. But that man hired them. A lot of freaking money was paid out to these people. And if they'd have researched these men at all, if they'd have researched these men and their bank accounts, they'd have found out who did it. But they literally, he paid the mob to hit his wife. He wanted he wanted it proven that it was for vengeance. It was something she did to him. I don't know what. My guess is, she probably cheated on him or something. I don't know, or she wanted to leave him. I don't know. All I know is that he paid the mob to vengefully kill his wife. There were 6 guys. There was a group of 6 men set down. My grandfather knew there were 6. 6 men were sent. Some were lookouts. Some were meant to hit the women. They stayed the night at the lodge. Grandpa said they'd have stayed later if they had to, just to make sure that there were no witnesses. The women were alone when they did the hit because the mafia doesn't leave witnesses. They just don't.
Right.
So, but apparently it was the second, literally the day after they got there. They went to St. Louis Canyon, which I've been to a million times, partly because I always was curious and partly because it's beautiful. But they followed them down there. No one was there, and they beat them to bloody pulps. From my understanding, they beat them to seriously bloody pulps. And they left them in a cave. They staged them in a cave. They pulled them into one of the caves, and I've seen the cave, so it's big enough literally to put women in, but not big enough to have murdered them in. So again, it makes sense. But they took everything they did. Anything they brought with them, they took with them, murder weapons and all.
They brought all that with them.
They brought everything with them that they needed. Now, one thing I can always say about my grandfather, when he arranged for someone to be beaten, there was no proof left.
Was your grandfather the one that arranged it, or he just heard this from his friend?
He was told by his friend that the friend was being paid to do this. So my grandfather was the one who gave him the 5 guys.
Oh, your grandfather arranged the 5 guys?
My grandfather told him who to take. He didn't say, I'll make sure they're available, something like that. He just told him who he should take.
I see. Okay. Your grandfather told his friend what 5 guys he should take.
Yes.
And then those
So
are
we
the
had
guys that
lookouts.
went down there. Was his friend
Yeah.
part of that group of 6?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And your grandfather passed in 1996.
Yeah. And he was I want to say he was 70. He might have been a little bit older. I don't remember exactly how old. He might have been nearing 75, but he was.
You know what's
older.
funny? You're right about that area it was very Italian.
Yeah.
Very mafia-ish. Mafia. People don't realize how big the mafia was back then, you know?
It don't. And
like
its fingers reached. Yeah, it reached everywhere. I mean, there were people.
Oh my gosh.
There were people in my hometown that were in the mafia.
And he said about Chester Uyghur, he was just
he was a fall guy. He was a patsy. With his words, he was a patsy. He was convenient, and they chose him, and that was it. They didn't look further. And everything I know about the police, they put the blinders on, and that's it. They found their guy. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's who they're hunting. That's the end of it.
Did it sound to you like in the story that the other 2 women just were kind of collateral damage, or
Oh, I knew they were.
like they had to kill all 3 because they wanted to kill the one?
Yes. And this was the most convenient time to make sure that the husband wasn't even fingered. This was,
Right.
this literally was all set up because the husband made a call, said, hey, they're going down this, she's going to Starbucks. She's got a couple of friends with her. And literally these other 2 women, sadly, their lives were they really were just collateral damage.
Did you hear anything about the husband that ordered it? Anything else about him besides like the communications part? Anything about his subsequent life or anything he did later? Or
I know nothing about him. No, I didn't ask questions. I let my grandpa tell me the story. He told me what he wanted me to do, and I probably should have asked questions. But I was 15 when I heard this.
So he gave you this mission to to try to free Chester Uyghur.
To help this man go free. Yes.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe it. This is unbelievable.
I wrote Uyghur a letter, and it was
no
pretty
way.
Because I was pretty scared that if at the time, I was 21, 22.
You wrote him a letter. Oh my god! I got these goosebumps again. I'm just so emotional right now.
I wrote him a letter telling him I knew he was innocent and that I couldn't prove it, but my story would help him find somewhere else to look. Because
oh my
seriously,
gosh,
I can't prove him innocent. I can't. I wish I could, but
right.
I know for a fact. For years, I told the LaSalle Police Department, and I'm friends with people in the Peru Department, and especially now, I grew up with half of them. But I told it LaSalle. I went to Ottawa. I said, look, I need you guys to run DNA on this. Especially, I was 24, 25. I was somewhere in there, and I said, look, I need you to run DNA on this stuff. There's no way this man did it. They wanted proof. I told them what happened. They said, I'm sorry, that's not enough. We can't just run DNA. It's expensive. If I'd had the money, I promise you, I would have paid to have the DNA run.
Oh my God! You went to the LaSalle Police Department, Ottawa Police Department. Where else?
I did. I just was found in Ottawa because I didn't know who arrested him. And back then, the internet wasn't internet. It was. I still had to look up everything in the public library. So, but I didn't know exactly where he was arrested, which department took him, because Utica doesn't have its own police department. So I didn't know who ended up arresting this man. I don't even know what town he's from. I reached out. I said, you know what? There's only one men's correctional facility in Illinois, so I wrote a letter. And I said, I hope this helps. I know it probably can't, but I've exhausted anything else I can do. I've been married 15 years, and my husband, he's like, you need to go back and do this. I said, there's nothing else I can do. What can I do for this man?
So then how did you get to the point where you and I are talking today? So how did it get to the point you reached out to me?
Yesterday, I was flipping through HBO Max because I wanted something to watch, and my daughter and I were literally binging Harry Potter. And I was like, going with Harry Potter.
Great show.
She's like, no, I know, it's great. I love it. Every now and then we just binge it. But I told her, I said, I want to watch something else. She goes, well, you look, I'm going to go bake. She was baking a cake, and I was flipping through, and I really love true crime. Part of it is my upbringing. Literally, John Wayne Gacy knew my next-door neighbors. So,
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was in high school at the time. We used to drive by his house.
Yeah, he's like literally 2 blocks from my grandfather's house.
Oh, he did?
Then,
wow.
Yeah, when I was 10 years old. I was almost 11, but I was 10 years old, and my best friend from Spring Valley, we were all, her and I, and were outside roller skating. We went down the hill. She was tinier than us. She was 6 going on 7. She's faster. She went down. She went up first. We were on our way. We hit the bottom of the hill. A truck came by us, so we stopped. It went up. She got in, and she never came home alive. So they found her in Iowa. The man's in prison. I really wish he would get the death penalty. He was literally there when they found her.
Oh
The only reason he killed her. The only reason he killed her is because she cried out to her mom. But people don't want stories like that. They don't care about things like that. So her story's never been heard, except in Spring Valley.
So you HBO Max, you saw this.
I've grown up with all this, so I love true crime. Well, I was flipping through. I saw one, and I looked down. I scrolled through the ones that like this, and I saw another one. I did that about 5 times until I found, all of a sudden, it said Starved Rock Murders, and I went. And she comes running. She goes, "What?" I said, "They did a story on it. Oh my God! I hope they found out he was innocent." And when I read the byline of it, it doesn't say it. It doesn't say man in prison for at least 56 years now.
No, 60, over 60. I just saw him yesterday. I was in LaSalle yesterday. I just saw him yesterday.
You saw him yesterday?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. He's out?
He's on parole. He's not.
I might cry.
He's 83 years old. He's 83 years old. He's on parole with an ankle monitor. We are trying to prove he's actually innocent. He's still got that conviction hanging over his head. He just got out of parole. He just got on parole recently, a little over a year ago. He did over 60. He did over 60 years in prison.
Yeah.
It's going to be the longest wrongful conviction in the United States history. So you saw HBO Max. So keep going in terms of how you got to me then.
Okay. So I looked at it. I said, what in the world? Why now? Well, I looked it up. I went on Google. I hate Google because, I'm educated and Google sucks. But I went on Google and I typed in his name, and all of a sudden underneath it populated DNA results. I held my breath. I really thought that it had come back. Well, it popped up. It said, his attorney thinks that this could prove his innocence. So I clicked on that article, and that's where I found your name. And I said, I've got to reach out to this man because I have to. My grandfather's wish was for me to do something. I have to reach out to this man. So I did, and now we're here.
Oh my gosh, I could cry. I could absolutely cry.
I could, just knowing that the man is finally outside of those walls.
I wish I could give you a hug. I wish you were right here in front of me. But here's what I wanted to say. When I saw your message on Facebook last night, I'm the attorney representing Chester Weger, trying to prove his innocence.
Right.
When I saw your message and you said, I know my grandfather told me how it happened, but you had all those qualifications like, I'm sure you're not going to call me back. I bet you don't care. Nobody ever reached out to me. I was so shocked to see that. Like, I wanted to call you right then, but it was evening, and I thought, well, I'll wait till the morning. But I thought to myself, like, why in the world would she think I would never call her back? Like, this is the most important thing in the world to me.
Because I've talked to every attorney that he's had. I have watched the Google, I forget what my dad calls it, the Google Nader or whatever. Every now and then I'll put his name in and I'll see if he's got a new attorney. And every now and then he's got one. I've reached out to 2 attorneys in the time until I finally just threw in the towel. I got remarried, moved to for 15 years. Every time I go home, I think about him. And every time I go home.
I've been waiting for you. Today is the day. Today is the day.
Yeah, buddy. I mean, years and years, I spent years trying to reach out to people, anyone that I could get just to listen, because doubt is what makes the case. Doubt is what proves that this man didn't do it. And the fact that I know 100%, I lived in this life. I watched my grandfather work. And even though he helped build, the John Hancock and Wacker Drive, the irony, he's in the mafia. And he made good money from them. But I tell you
Mm-hmm.
what, spent years and years trying to get someone, anyone, just to listen. And hence there's no way you're going to call me back, but at least care enough to help this man because I know he's innocent. That's all I cared about. That's literally all I cared about. Knowing that a man is in prison
Wow.
because he didn't do something just kills me.
Right.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
His set aside, how many cases from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s can be thrown out because of DNA? I can't believe in 2000 they didn't just start running DNA on stuff. I know it sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's more complicated. It's hard. You have to first get the court's permission. Secondly, let me say, initially, you have to have things to test. You don't always have things to test. So we have DNA testing, some things found, hair, twine, some cigarette butts. All the DNA results are supposed to, pardon me?
That's the one thing I thought of. I thought, okay, if they're running DNA, God help me, I hope he wasn't a smoker and he wasn't in that canyon any time in the last 24 hours.
I know. I mean, the thing is, he was a smoker, and he was familiar with that canyon. I agree. That would be, I'm just hoping there's no reason for contamination, But all our DNA, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
all our DNA results are supposed to come back by the end of July.
They're all so no chance this man did it. None.
Yeah. Well, I have been putting together a very strong case of all the reasons why I think show that Chester Weger didn't do it. I have been advocating on my podcast that it was a premeditated plan among several people. I make the argument that one of the men wanted his wife killed, and I talk about that. And I actually had another gentleman reach out to me who told me a similar story to yours. That jives basically exactly. He was more of a local guy. Yeah. And
I was saying he might, I don't know where these men came from. I don't know if anyone was local that my grandfather suggested, but Grandpa told me that he told him who to take. And it's possible that there were 1, 2, 3 local guys because they're local. They know stuff about.
Well, what the guy told me was he had a friend who was local who got a call from a guy who just said, we have a mutual friend. And this guy, the local guy, was kind of mob connected. And the local guy was just like the planner, like in terms of logistics, right? But that all these guys came up from the Chicago area, like a bunch of guys came up from the Chicago area. Yeah. What you're saying jives exactly with everything I've been told, everything I've been working on. Oh my God, I've been waiting for this day. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Bless your heart.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm a big believer in God, and He has a plan.
Oh my gosh! So I want to. I need to digest all this. My head is just running in circles right now. I want to tell you something. On behalf of Chester Weger, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you coming forward, sharing your information. I believe every single syllable you told me. You have no reason to be making it up. I believe everything you said. Everything you said is absolutely perfectly consistent with what I have learned in my investigation. And to me, it's kind of the final nail in the coffin to prove that Chester Weger had nothing to do with these crimes. I just need the DNA to come back all, clean, which it should. But oh my gosh, I like I said, I want to cry. I'm I'm emotional now just thinking about the conversation we just had.
I have one request from you, and I know everyone says that, and everyone, oh no, when this all comes out and he's found innocent, because I know he will be, please just tell the man I want to give him a hug, because for years I've spent my life trying to find a way to get someone to listen that I know he's innocent. And I know everyone has their speculations, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this man did not do it. And I just want to hug this man so bad and tell him I'm sorry.
You know what? I can arrange that for you. Absolutely. I can make that happen. And I can't wait. I can't wait to be there in person and to see you give him a big hug. I can't wait to see it.
I'm not a big crier, but I'm
God.
going to tell you, I hug that man the day he's found innocent or after he's found innocent. I'm going to bawl my eyes out because it'll fulfill my grandfather's wish and it will set a man free that I have been fighting for over 20-some years.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I can't fight it. Here, the worst part about this, after my grandfather passed, there's nothing I could prove. There was nothing I had physical grip on.
Right.
At that time, my mother was still alive, so I went to her and said, do we have anything of Grandpa's that, any of his old books? And she said, no, when he passed, he told me to burn them. So
oh, my God.
I had nothing I could physically use to prove it.
I just want to tell you, oh, my God, I am so emotional. My head is racing because you have just so powerfully corroborated everything I've been saying. I feel like this day is now going to be a reality. There's no doubt in my mind. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Oh, my God. Because I've got a lot of other things. I just needed to have, kind of another plausible story on how things could have happened, and you're providing that,
Well,
what you have.
Grandpa told me that the poor guy worked at the lodge. So the only thing I can think of is if the DNA comes back, it's going to come back on a cigarette. Because the lodge isn't. Have you been to Starved Rock? Have you walked down to the park of the lodge? Have you walked down to the so it's not it's not a far walk. You go on a break, you want to walk somewhere pretty, you can go to the St. Louis Canyon. It's gorgeous. Yeah. So the only thing I can think is, Lord help them, they didn't pull cigarettes that were in the snow, like under the snow, like if they were digging around. Because I know it happens in the winter. Otherwise, there's no way this man is going to come back with anything DNA.
Yep. But we're going to meet in person sooner rather than later, and I want to give you a call back, later today, and just kind of let you know where I kind of want to go from here. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of overwhelmed myself at this point. Normally I'm very logical and can think, but when you called and I heard your name, I went, no, my brain just stopped for a minute. And I'm sure if there's something else comes back, and I wouldn't doubt that there is, because I'm kind of rambling more than I am telling everything, I will definitely let you know later. I'm more surprised that someone finally called back and said, I care, I believe you, I know something is
coming. Oh my God,
you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, I was so looking forward to calling you. I mean, I was literally looking at my phone like 9 o'clock, boom. My phone hit 9 o'clock and I dialed the number. I just didn't want to do it last night. I just thought, I want to be fresh. I want to do it when, we're both ready to talk. And
I
got to give a big breath.
I don't usually take calls from Chicago, but I only answered it because my son lives there now. My oldest is 20, and he will be at the end. And so I was like, maybe he's calling me from a work number. And so that's the only reason I called it back.
I messaged you back and said I'm going to call you at 9. I don't know if you saw that message.
Believe it or not, I don't even use Facebook. I hopped on there. If you go look at my page, you'll see I don't ever post anything. I gave up using it because I'm tired of drama.
It's amazing you found me, though. It's amazing you found me. Oh my gosh.
I really truly believe that God puts people in your place when they're supposed to be. And until this point, I always looked for everybody else. This literally hit me like a book in the face when I saw HBO Max, and then I did a little bit of research. I said, hey, you know what? One more shot, one more ditch effort. And I told my husband,
I have made a big effort because the reason I did the podcast, and I have a podcast that got 14 episodes out. I just took out a full page ad a week ago in the LaSalle News Tribune. I actually was at the LaSalle post office yesterday. You know what I was doing? I'm mailing 5,000 postcards to people. And you know what I'm trying to get? Is what you just gave me. What you just gave me. That's what I was trying to get. Somebody out there, I said, I know somebody out there has the piece of the puzzle, the final piece of the puzzle I need, and it was you. It was you.
I'm glad. I only hope that it can bring him some
Bless
kind
your
of
heart.
peace.
Bless your heart. All right, I'm going to call you back a little later today. I'm going to probably make a little list of some other questions and just some thoughts. And but I want to tell you, I'm over the moon. I could jump for joy right now. I want to tell you how excited I am. But thank you.
I honestly feel the same way, just based on the fact that I finally got to tell someone who would listen.
Your grandpa's looking down smiling right now because he knows you finally made the connection.
I'm glad. I'm really glad.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
If I have any questions, honestly, if I don't have an answer, I'm not going to give you something I don't know. But if I do,
okay. No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's all I want. I just want what you know.
Thank you so much for making the call.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you again a little bit later.
All right. Have a good one, Andy.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Hearing the conversation gives me goosebumps all over again. And I was even more blown away after meeting her in person. There is no doubt in my mind, none, that this woman is telling me the truth. She is sincere. She is honest. She is heartfelt. She is emotional. She has absolutely nothing to gain by coming forward here, but she's doing it, like she said, because it was the wishes of her relative. Our jigsaw puzzle is almost complete. This is the second to last puzzle piece. The final piece will be the DNA results that we should have back soon. We took another giant step forward to proving Chester Weger's innocence. We are knocking on the door of justice. Stay tuned. We hope to be back with a final episode soon. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Starved Rock Murders with Andy Hale. And thank you for joining Whitney and I on this journey for justice. Today was a huge episode. I cannot overstate how huge it was. But the but is we're not done investigating. We're not done digging. There's more out there. I know there is. If there's anybody out there that knows something, even if you think it's small, please reach out. We're all ears. We're still looking. We're still digging. We're still investigating. No tip or information is too small. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. This show is produced in collaboration with Phineas Ellis, design, content, and promotion by Bell and Ivy, and hosted by myself and Whitney Braun. We'll see you next time.